Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Winfree, and what you're about to listen to is an old episode of a podcast I used to host called Everyone Loves a Bad Guy. This particular episode is the fourth installment in that franchise, so very early days in some respects. It features myself and Robert Cooper kind of kicking around the notion and media applications, fictional versions, of evil corporations. This is a subject I probably should have waited to tackle till I was a little bit more sure of myself as a host and did a bit more research and whatnot, because, well, I don't dislike the discussion that Cooper and I have. It's also not quite what I wish it could have been. One of the few regrets I have about this show. One that I would have liked another go around at, but you live and you learn, and I am better for the experience. And again, the conversation is not exactly bad by any stretch of the imagination. So thank you very much for listening. I thank you very much for all the support you're able to give the various podcast endeavors we engage in here. Let me throw it back to my past self, and I hope you all enjoy the show.
When the devil is too busy and death a bit too much, they call on me by name, you see, for my special touch. To the gentlemen I'm misfortune, to the ladies I'm surprise. But call me by any name, anyway it's all the same. I'm the fly in your suit, I'm the pebble in your shoe, I'm the bee beneath your bed, I'm the bump on every head, I'm the heel on which you slip, I'm the pin in every head, I'm the thorn in your side, makes you wiggle and writhe. And it's so easy when you're evil. This is the life you see, the devil tips his hat to me. I do it all because I'm evil, and I do it all for free. Your tears are all the pay I'll ever need.
Good evening, everyone. An hour later than usual, but other people have time limitations, whereas I get to lay back in a hedonic existence and can do these things whenever. Ha 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 ha. I am your host, Robert Winfree. You're listening to Everyone Loves a Bad Guy. Everyone loves a villain. Focus on the darker side of things. Sometimes they can be humorous, sometimes they make your skin crawl, but we try to look at everything here. Tonight we have a extraordinarily powerful archetype, a trope of various mediums that has shown up more than once, the evil corporation. They're everywhere, in real life, in fiction, in games, movies, books, comic books, they're everywhere. They're filled with shadowy board members, evil executives, evil vice presidents of various degrees, and one has to assume evil stockholders, because you can't be a good guy if you've bought stock in Umbrella Corporation. That's just my opinion. Now, I have a special guest with me tonight, a fellow metalhead, though I believe his metal exceeds mine. He writes for the Music Zone at 411 Mania. He is Mr. Robert Cooper. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm feeling a little evil. I like it.
Oh, good. Well, hey, you and Mark Radlitz reviewed some Fin Troll not too long ago, so that should have helped.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was great. Even though that evil made me want to kind of dance a little, this type of evil just kind of makes me want to sit in my boardroom talking about let's ship off the newest batch of waste into a Chinese river.
I agree.
Yeah.
Those, and there's plenty of Chinese too. I mean, really.
Exactly, and a lot of them named after colors. So, why not match the name with the color?
There we go.
Give it a reason.
That works very well. All right. Since we're talking evil corporation, they're everywhere, as I said before. You can't seem to find any set of movies, any set of comic books, any set of books that don't touch on these in one way or another. What's the first one that comes to your mind when we say evil corporation? The profit-driven group in the boardroom thinking up ways to squeeze every last penny out of their beleaguered workforce, or the environment, they wish to deforest things, they wish to nuke the whales. These are bad people. What's the first one that springs to your mind?
Well, the one that always comes to my mind when you say corporation, it's not a corporation, but I always think of the Empire from Star Trek. Damn it, Star Wars. I always think of the Empire, and I'm like, that's not technically a corporation, but hey, I mean, it could be worse. I mean, I don't know.
It's almost
so
worse
evil.
when they're not driven by profit, because profit everyone can understand. I mean, everyone needs money. Yes, there are people who take it to the extreme and they become more evil, but everyone understands greed. Everyone understands the desire for money. The Empire's just by and large.
Yeah. Which, I mean, sometimes, like, I was thinking as the intro was going on, I'm like, what's better? What is a better evil? Like, just pure evil for evil's sake. Like, they don't care. Or evil with a purpose. They're both kind of fun. We all like Dr. Evil. He's great. So sometimes you like them to have a nice little sad backstory. Like, I was a whiny bitch, and I lost half my limbs and became a pawn to the Emperor,
Oh, one of my brothers and I have recently been going back and forth on the Star Wars universe because it turns out, and I agree with his logic a little bit here, but he prefers the new trilogy, 1, 2, and 3 to 4, 5, and 6, in a lot of ways.
Huh.
And I can't disagree. He prefers when he watches movies, he prefers them to be world immersive. He likes to just lose himself, sit back, eat popcorn, watch movies. And in a lot of ways, I think the new trilogy is better as far as that goes. And I can see his point. I don't necessarily agree with it, but that's his point. There's a lot of better things about the original, 4, 5, and 6, but his point is that he thinks 4, 5, and 6 are kind of like half-formed ideas where the entire Star Wars universe is not fully realized, and you get that in 1, 2, and 3. And that's why he enjoyed more. And you know what? If he can enjoy them, I say good on, because I have a harder time enjoying them.
Okay. But, yeah, that's one of the best, evil corporations I can think of. And they're not even a corporation. They're bigger. They're worse.
Yeah. They're the government. Evil government. They go hand in hand with corporations. I wonder why
really, a government is just a giant corporation, you think of it.
By and large. Okay, so one of the ones that springs to my mind that I do want to definitely talk about here is from movies and video games, from the Resident Evil franchise. They're always up against the Umbrella Corporation. This corporation that has grown so large, it controls everything. It manufactures everything, and it influences the government. It's just all-encompassing, and it likes to create zombie viruses.
Who doesn't? I mean, I do.
Hey, look, I'm all for zombies. I'm a huge fan of the zombies, but, an evil corporation creating them to sell them to the highest bidder for military application or or releasing mutagenetic things into the world, it's not a good thing. So talk to me a little bit about Umbrella from your standpoint, from the video games, the movies, the whole 9 yards. What do you not like about them? What makes them work as far as being a bad guy goes for that whole franchise?
Well, I can't say I'm a story Resident Evil player, but I've played, bits and pieces of it and seen a movie or two, unfortunately. But I feel like they're very nice. I almost call them faceless because, as I said, I've not played much of the games. I'm not very familiar with it, but I feel like they're just kind of faceless. Like, their drones are just those mindless zombies. Like, they are the corporation when you kind of boil it down. Like, there is some asshole making everybody zombies, but I feel like they're just kind of a nice corporation. they're a nice corporation. But basically they're kind of faceless, and they're faceless, but you see them everywhere. They are the zombies, because I don't recall when playing 2 to 4 hours I've played Resident Evil. I don't really recall seeing actually anybody besides a demon or a zombie.
It's true. They never really seem to develop a figurehead that some other corporations, you have someone in charge. Yes, they're an evil group. Yes, the whole enterprise is bad, so to speak, but you always have, with a lot of others, you do have the figure. You have the guy who you can point to and say, he's in charge, he's the one causing all of this. With Umbrella, it's always so vague unless you get into the movies, and the less said about the work of Paul W.S. Anderson, the better, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said, like a faceless organization. There's something to be said for it, because a lot of times when it comes to a large corporation, you can look at it and be like, okay, well, that's just one guy. Well, if it's a faceless thing, there's just so much you can think about, like, who is running this? What are his underlings? Exactly how powerful are they? How far is their reach? Because, I mean, we know their reach is far, but we don't know quite how. We don't know who's running it. For all we know, it could be the president. That's just something just kind of there's something odd and mysterious. It's quite charming.
It's it strikes me as this is going to be an odd thing to say, but the evil corporation strikes me as a bit of a American concept where, we all love, and maybe this came a lot more out of like the late 70s and early 80s when all of the localized mom and pop stores were going out of business, and you had, Walmart and the big corporations coming in and taking over everything and buying everyone out. But it seems a very American type of invention to have because, they're squashing the American dream. It was the faceless bank that forced the family out of their home in the Grapes of Wrath. It was, you can go on and on with these things. Even the evil corporation that was headed by Michael Douglas in Wall Street, Gordon Gekko, who would burn out any other corporation just because he thought he could. And he's definitely in that one, but he's not. But even in that, he's not the president. He's not the big guy. He's not the one in the leather chair stroking the cat, so to speak. He's just doing stuff because he thinks he wants to make money, and he thinks he can because he can get away with it. Essentially, his motivation.
Yeah,
but when you start
that's fairly true.
having something completely faceless like Umbrella Corp it also prevents you from ever truly defeating them, which is an important trope, especially in video games, because, in a long-running series, you can only fight the same enemy so many times. You can only cut the head off so many times. And if you never actually get to the head, if you never find the president of the corporation, then it makes sense for it to keep popping up, right?
Right, unless it's a giant spiky turtle and it stole your princess.
There you go.
Bowser is his own evil vision. But that is something to be said. I didn't even think about. Like, if it's a faceless corporation, you don't know how far you have to go to even think about beating. Like, part of the cool thing about like a lot of video games, like Assassin's Creed, you're aiming to kill one person, or at least in the one I played, Assassin's Creed 2, you're aiming to kill a person. You have to kill everyone around them to get to him. And that's kind of cool, that's a nice little evil corporation right there. But if you don't have that, if you don't even have a face to go with what you're doing, you can just be shooting random peons, and you're never going to know.
Well, yeah, especially with Assassin's Creed, because I would encourage you to keep playing them because I've enjoyed all three. But you're fighting against this multi-generational faceless organization. The Knights Templar, I think, is what they went with for. I'm not all the way through 3 yet, but. So even then, you're fighting you're fighting their peons, you're fighting their representatives, and you build up a big deal about killing one guy, which I love the way they did that in the game, but you're making very little actual progress against the overall organization, which is still faceless and driven by a desire to collect mystical artifacts, unwind the fabric of humanity. I'm not sure entirely. I actually enjoy the serious motivation as well.
That is, I'm trying to get a hold of the other games off eBay, because you can get things off eBay real cheap if you're lucky. So far, no luck.
It's true.
I just managed to get the first two Mass Effect games for about $10 total. Not bad. Not bad.
No, not bad at all.
Yeah. Yes, it took a little time. But yeah, the Assassin's Creed games, they have a really nice organization. Now, it's kind of funny because I was randomly thinking of a corporation that I would like to talk about, but you have no idea who they are. From the
I go for it.
Kind of like, okay, well, in Japan, we get Power Rangers. We get Power Rangers. We get them from Japan. In Japan, Power Rangers and what it was is an entire genre. It's called tokusatsu, which, rubber suits, things exploding, robots, blah, blah, blah. And Kamen Rider is started in 1971, and the evil corporation in that was called Shocker. And Shocker has been, let's see, I think they were in like the first 3-4 series, and they were just the villains. And even in these the newer series that are on now, 40 years later, they're still a villain. Basically, what Shocker likes to do is just basing off the origins of the first Kamen Rider, kidnapping people and turning them into cyborgs. Yeah, that's what they do. They like turning people into cyborgs, turning them into monsters, and they're going to take over the world. No surprise, they're really just Nazis. I mean, this was 1971, so of course it was nice and right to make things based off Nazis, which is what they are. They use, basically most of them are a lot of just rubber-suited people, and I love the little mooks, the people that get their ass kicked. They're just all black-clad with black ski masks, and they just have a skeleton motif on it, and they always every time they get hit, it's E, just E, every time. That's all it is. I think that kind of lends, it kind of sort of does lend to, they're not faceless, but they keep coming back because, you know, you can't kill a villain in a children's television show, but they're just going to keep coming back.
It is a negative of the kids' television show that whenever you get those bad guys who you wish to see killed, they can't actually because it's a kids' TV show.
Well, I mean, actually, they actually did. They did kill him, but for nostalgia's sake, they brought him back like 30 years later. Oddly enough.
All right. Well,
but
yeah. I mean, you know, kids' television
yeah.
shows are kind of like comic books in that death doesn't necessarily mean as much as it should.
Yeah, which kind of stinks. I actually remember once, what was it, in the late 90s, they had, you know, the huge boom in cartoons that I watched as a kid, all the superhero cartoons. They had a Silver Surfer one, but they had Thanos, but they couldn't call, you know, Death, the character that he serves, Death on our children's show. Yeah, they named it like Chaos or something.
Oh, that's just sad because he's Thanos. And, well, hopefully we'll get him in Avengers 2, and we can all kind of put the memories of the
Infinity
overly
Gauntlet.
cartoony version.
Yeah, Infinity Gauntlet was a very good comic. I actually own it. I like it. It's quite good. Yep. Ooh, I just randomly thought of a corporation that I didn't even think about before, LexCorp.
Oh, there we go.
How did we not think of LexCorp?
Well, I was trying to avoid specific discussions of Lex Luger because Lex Luger. Yes, him too, for an entirely different set of reasons. I don't know, but Lex Luthor, I do want to do one of these podcasts specifically dedicated to Lex Luthor and his various portrayals across different mediums. But yes, LexCorp is the evil counterpart to Wayne Industries.
Yeah, I never thought about that, but they really are.
Yeah, they
pretty much
again profit-driven, headed by an evil genius. They make bad things for the purposes of making money. That's their bottom line. I mean, yes, Lex Luthor wants to become president, wants to rule the world, wants to kill Superman, whatever his individual motivation happens to be at any given point in time, he can always fall back on the vast financial resources of LexCorp.
It's like, it just reminds me, him and Batman never got into a money fight. It's like I saw a picture. It was just like Superman and Captain America are like, oh, wow, Superman. And Superman's like, oh, I'm a huge fan. It's just Iron Man and Batman. He's like, Stark. And he's like, Batsy. And then they just start throwing money at each other.
I think I've seen that one, yeah.
I love that one. That's what that would end up being anyways. It'd just be two guys throwing money at each other.
It's true. But, yeah, well, and LexCorp has no scruples about what they finance either. There's been a few, if you've seen I don't know how it plays out in the comic book version because I haven't read it specifically, but in the Justice League Doom, the movie that went along with the
I haven't seen that one yet. I don't want to see it. I think it might be. It
is on Netflix, actually. It's pretty good. I mean, I'm not a comic book aficionado, so I can't speak to how, you know, the greatness of it, but they're one of the bad guys, I believe Mirage Man, voiced by Alexis Denisoff, voiced by him, who played Wesley in Angel, which is why I bring that up. But back on track, he has a computer spike that he uses to hack the Batcom that he got developed by LexCorp at extraordinary cost, I can only imagine. But LexCorp will finance a supervillain. They will build something for him so he can hack the Batcom. They are just about money so that they can finance the evil plans of Lex Luthor whenever he comes up with another. And that's a pretty big, you know, as many times as Lex Luthor has been brought down, brought to justice, locked away, deposed, no matter what happens to Lex Luthor, his company has always survived.
Yeah.
And they continue to make money even now.
Because, like, we were talking about a faceless organization. Also, like, LexCorp is cool, but the only problem with LexCorp, I guess, it was really just built around Lex Luthor. Like, when you have a one-face company, again, you can't really talk much about it. Like, you know, you got one face to it, but there's no generals. There's no, you know, no peons, no nothing. Like, if you don't, you know, it's kind of odd. But LexCorp is a fun company, but really it's just Lex Luthor's way of, you know, not being a hobo every time he kicks his ass to Mars.
It's true.
And that.
Well, if you get in, I believe in Smallville they actually ran a whole subplot once in with Lex Luthor taking over his father's corporation. So you had LexCorp taking over Luthor Industries or something like that. So he absorbed even more infrastructure.
Yeah, because I've seen, like, I think I watched Smallville for like 2 seasons, and I was like, eh.
Yeah, I believe that was about the extent of my exposure to them. I'm going off of second and third hand knowledge and stuff I've read on the internet.
Kane and Batista were on it once. Yeah, definitely. You know, Batista, that man can act.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
seen the man with the iron fists. He did a great job. I mean, he actually did a good job. That was a fun movie. If you like kung fu movies, Man with the Iron Fist was a very good movie.
I meant to see that when it came out. I haven't got around to it yet.
It's just it's not great for a kung fu movie. It's kind of fun. I enjoyed it.
Well, if we're speaking of
rhythm.
kung fu movies, a version of the evil corporation pops up all the time in in modern kung fu movies. The Yakuza, the Japanese Mafia, the Chinese, the Triad,
how could we forget them?
The Mafia, organized crime, however, across whatever culture, they're just an illegal corporation, but they're driven purely by profit. All they care about is the money that they're able to create, and depending on the culture, you have other subjective goals. But, they're driven by money, just as much as any legitimate business. The Italians were all about the almighty dollar. I mean, that's a huge discussion in the Godfather movies. Whenever the families get together, it's how does this affect business?
Oh, yeah. Those movies are great. I finally watched them a few years ago because I watched them and then I watched Scarface because, I had to get it all at once. I really did love The Godfather was very good. I enjoyed the way that it was portrayed, like the mob. A lot of times when you think of the mob, it's just a bunch of Italian stereotypes who just care about money. That's all of it. I think The Godfather really showed the human element to them. Like, I really enjoyed Vito Corleone for Don. Like, he's probably my favorite character from the whole series, as odd as that is, because a lot of people only mention him once they get to favorite characters, because he was only around for a movie. Spoilers.
Well, he's in the second one. You just get Robert De Niro's version.
Robert De Niro. That's true. That is true. Well, I don't think anybody would be saying that, what's her face? The director's daughter. I don't think she was anybody's favorite character from the third movie.
No, probably not. No,
that third one, I'm sure that's covered.
The whole third movie is just not good.
It's at least the way I look at it, it's a good movie, but it's The Godfather. That's like, two masterpieces and then an okay movie. That okay movie just like shit. Like total shit on the wall considering what it followed. Especially because it was so far later.
Oh,
yeah. The cash in.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. Yeah. I feel bad for everyone.
I can't feel too bad. They made lots and lots and lots of money.
So much money that apparently Joe Montana's character is able to charter an attack helicopter, shoot all the Dons out in the hotel room.
I was going to reference a movie I saw last weekend, but you might not. I'm not going to do it. It's Star Trek. I'm not going to reference that. It was a very good movie, by the way. You should see it.
Yeah, I'm planning on it. I haven't got around to it yet, but I was definitely planning on seeing it later this weekend, hopefully.
I actually liked it more than Iron Man 2. I don't know if you've seen either.
But Iron Man 2 or 3?
3.
You liked it more than Iron Man 3, really? Huh.
I liked it more than Iron Man 3. Did you see Iron Man 3?
Yeah, I've seen that one.
It was good. It was fun. I had a good time. I just felt like I was more immersed in the Star Trek movie. But maybe it's because I've already been in 3 Iron Man movies, and I'm just kind of
another Iron Man at that point.
I wouldn't say done. Now if we were getting to something like Daredevil thing, and I'm kind of excited if we did another Daredevil movie because the last one was so bad. Yeah, I guess it's just one of those new Iron Man. I'm excited, but at the same time I'm not really hyper about it. I'm like, okay, I've probably seen this movie before, which surprisingly I haven't. It was different because the second Iron Man movie was not that great. It was good, but not that good.
Well, we're speaking of evil corporations in Iron Man 2. You get Sam Rockwell in Iron Man 2 playing Hammer, the head of Hammer Industries.
Hammer Industries, yeah.
Which
that was a fun.
Sam Rockwell can have some fun moments. Got some talent as an actor, but his corporation is evil when they break Whiplash, they break Mickey Rourke out of jail, kill someone else so that he can escape, and then contract him to build an army of drones that he can then use to try and destroy Iron Man and everyone in what I can only assume is like a 3-mile radius.
Yeah, and also they can't build a missile to save their lives.
That's true. It's true. That poor missile that got built up.
The ex-wife.
The ex-wife.
That was perfect, though. Even though that was the climax, that was really kind of like a perfect little thing, to show how shitty Hammer Industries were. They were pretty much like Stark Industries, Stark Industries' little brother. They were the redheaded stepchild, always a step behind. And not even the good type of redheaded stepchild that you feel bad for and everything. Oh no, this is just like the little shitty one that you're like, you're an asshole, go away. Yeah, but it made for a good villain. It did, which if I could remember anything like the name of the corporation from the third movie, I would talk about that too. But I would say they were also very
third
good.
one, it was that think tank, right? AIM, AIM?
Oh, yeah, AIM. Duh, how can I forget that? AIM are actually kind of big shit in Marvel.
Yeah, actually, when you get into the the universe and whatnot, they're a pretty big deal.
Yeah, they
But,
used to be huge in the
Guy
comics.
Pearce can only be so... I think Guy Pearce can only be so menacing.
Yeah.
As far as being
he's
the big
not
bad guy.
Yeah, like when you see, the main villain for this new Star Trek, he, like, every word is just, like, oozing menace. Like, he's legitimately scary.
Yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch plays the villain in the new Star Trek movie. He also plays Sherlock Holmes on the BBC version of Sherlock Holmes and does a great job, I think, as Holmes as far as that goes. So if anybody in here hasn't seen that, check it out. It is on Netflix. Go see him. You can see him play a menacing villain in theaters, and you can see him be the world's greatest detective on Netflix.
You could see him being a kind of sort of menacing asshole as Sherlock. He's not quite menacing, but he's just a little enigmatic. But he does a very good job. Well, I was surprised there's only 3 episodes per season, but when you consider they're an hour and a half each, you kind of understand.
Well, plus they're all very good. I mean, a lot of shows you're lucky to get that kind of quality in even half of the episodes.
Oh yeah, it was very high quality. It's a very good show. He's a good actor. His voice is pretty epic. Then again, I've come to notice a lot of British people have very epic voices.
It's true. It's something about the accent, depending on where they come from in the country.
That was funny. Just random, since we were just talking about Star Trek. Like my mom was watching a documentary, Star Trek person. She's like, his voice is so epic. I'm like, who the hell is this? She goes, this is Michael Dorn. I'm like, Worf? I never really considered his voice epic. She's like, just listen. And I'm listening. I'm like, okay, I can see it. He has his voice has a nice tone to it. I'm just used to hearing it in very short, stupid sentences. Isn't it true? Yeah, I mean him, and apparently Avery Brooks, who played Captain, watched much of Deep Space Nine. His voice is fun too. But it's just mostly British people, because as a joke,
I think the 2 most epic voices ever are like Patrick Stewart and Morgan Freeman.
And James Earl Jones, he's somewhere.
Oh yeah, you have to throw in James. He was Darth Vader.
And Mufasa.
Mufasa.
Yes. So I didn't make that connection at the time. Yeah. My parents never saw the end of that Lion King, because once Simba turned big, I was convinced it was a totally new lion. And I would argue in the middle of the theater with my parents that they were wrong. So, now we win. So, well, let's see. What are some other good evil corporations?
One that I have to bring up. From the RoboCop series, Omni Consumer Products, OCP. Now, I know you haven't seen the RoboCop movie.
Sadly.
I think you have to do so, but I think one of the things with that series, the first one, I'll speak specifically to the first one. The president of OCP is not portrayed as the main villain. He's in charge of this company, but he's not the real bad guy. But just to let you understand how far off-center the morals of that story are, one of the opening sequences features the real bad guy, the vice president. I forget what he was the vice president. He's one of the vice presidents. He is senior vice president Dick Jones, and he introduces the Ed 209, which RoboCop was huge when I was a kid, so I can assume you've seen the big bipedal guy opposite RoboCop, that big robot that's always been around. But yeah, he introduces him as the new law enforcement. We're going to replace all of the police officers in the city with these things, because this corporation has basically bought the city. They bailed out Detroit, which is not as realistic now as it was back then, because they're even further in debt now.
Yeah.
But he's introducing this, and he hands away, so to demonstrate how it works, he provides one of the random people in this board meeting with a handgun and says, point it at Ed 209, he will respond, and we'll see how this goes from there, and to further demonstrate the product. Points the gun at the robot wakes up, arms its cannons, gets in its big deep voice. You have an unauthorized weapon pointed at law enforcement personnel. You have 10 seconds to disarm yourself. So the guy, not being stupid, drops the gun, and the robot malfunctions. It doesn't recognize that he's dropped the gun. 5 seconds later, it proceeds to violently gun him down in the boardroom with the machine guns that it has for arms. So, no. Now, the president, the chairman, puts his head in his hands for a moment, looks up at senior president Dick Jones and says, I'm very disappointed in this. This man was just gunned down in your boardroom, and you're supposed to be the good guy, and your response is, I'm very disappointed. Just to let you know how off kilter that whole place is. That's the good guy. He's actually not a bad guy. He winds up being relevant to the final sequence, but he's not the bad guy. This human life just ended violently, and he's disappointed.
In his room.
Yeah, in his boardroom. It's just that, and again, OCP goes throughout all the RoboCop movies.
Naturally.
Well, at least, and well, it's different in 3 they get bought out by someone else, but their whole point is to privatize the entire city of Detroit. They wish to demo everything, rebuild it into Delta City, a highly modernized, really shiny city run by their corporation. We don't need the municipalities. We don't need people voting. You want to express your right to express opinion as to civic policy is expressed by the amount of stock you hold. So they want to turn the whole thing into a corporation, basically. Sorry, give me 1 second.
Hey! Shut up! Heavy!
Sorry, my dog decided someone at the door is cause for an alarm, so if you want to talk a bit about something else while I deal with her, go for it. So talk away for a few minutes while I deal with this.
Okay. Well, just since I'm running solo, we were speaking about RoboCop. You know what would be cool? I'd like to see RoboCop versus Judge Dredd. You know, I'm sure they've done it in the comic book. You know, they've done everything in that comic book. I'm just thinking about it. You know, RoboCop and the fact he's a fucking robot with a gun versus Judge Dredd, who is the law and stands by the law and upholds the law. And if you've seen the new Judge Dredd movie starring Carl Urban, can kill a whole building full of men, you know, in an hour and a half. So I'd like to see that. That'd be a nice little battle royal. Now, if you could get that, and then, you know, maybe throw in a third party, like Judge Dredd and RoboCop versus the Terminator. Now, which Terminator am I thinking of? I'm thinking of Arnold. No, you know, I could be thinking of the...
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I've just been rambling.
It's okay. You can ramble a little. It's the time of year when sales reps are out going door to door, and my dog does not like them.
Oh, your dog must be handy for Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, yeah. If only she were bigger and menacing, but she's just a beagle. Actually, if we're speaking of Arnold, another evil corporation that I think warrants mention, the group Cyberdyne Systems, which are the creators of Skynet, which is the sentient computer program that developed the Terminators and set off the nuclear war, the whole 9 yards. That was developed by Cyberdyne Systems. Now, I do have to say, initially, Cyberdyne, not necessarily an evil corporation, but they get that way real fast, especially once Skynet winds up taking over everything. It goes from being a defense contractor to, you know, I think humanity is a problem, so we'll just nuke the world.
Exactly, which that does tie into what I was rambling about. I was talking about how I wanted RoboCop versus Judge Dredd, and then I was like, you know, why not put them together versus the Terminator?
You know,
that'd
that would
be nice.
It could be a tag team match. You could have Arnold and Robert Patrick versus RoboCop and Judge Dredd.
There we go. Have you seen the new Judge Dredd?
I haven't yet.
Urban.
I meant to, but I never got around to it. I
If
still have
you
a
don't
bad taste
mind,
in my mouth from the first one.
Oh, it is nothing like this. This one is basically...
Oh, I know it's vastly different. I'm just still a little gun-shy.
That's right. It's pretty badass. It's just watch Carl Urban as Judge Dredd versus almost an entire building of bad guys. Pretty simplistic, but it was enjoyable. I liked it.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes you don't need complicated plot. You just need to watch stuff blow up. And you know, we all make fun of Michael Bay, but you know what? His movies make money for a reason. Sometimes you just want to watch the explosion.
Then again, have you seen the pictures from the set of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie?
No, let's not go there. Let's not go there.
Megan Fox. Oh, God. Why did he hire her back? She's not a nice woman or a nice person or a really that...
You know what? I don't care what she's like as a person or an actress. She is nothing like April O'Neil. You know, a brief rant, if we're talking about evil corporations, whatever movie studio is hiring Michael Bay, you people are beyond evil.
Michael Bay, if you are anything like that awful Eddie Murphy movie where it's a bunch of little Eddie Murphys running a giant Eddie Murphy, Michael Bay is that evil corporation.
Oh, yeah. I mean... You know, I kind of get where he wanted to go with the Transformers movie. Transformers were a big part of my childhood.
I missed the boat.
Turtles were an even bigger part of my childhood. I was a huge Turtles fan, and for that man to continue violating my childhood is just not right.
Well, hey, they took G.I. Joe. They've already taken Transformers. They're getting Ninja Turtles. Let's see. Well, what other boys franchises are left? Well, I guess if you want to go a little farther, they already ruined Power Rangers themselves. Do it all by themselves.
Yeah, we didn't need Michael Bay.
Power Rangers doing Could you imagine a Power Rangers movie with Michael Bay? Oh boy. Oh wow.
Yes,
They
yes,
have
I
enough.
can.
Oh, that would be amazing. Book it, Dano.
That would you almost have to do that just for how bad it'll be. I mean,
Oh,
that
well,
almost
it'll
needs
be
to exist in the same way that like Troll 2 exists.
See, now we're starting to tangent. Like I've been doing the games podcast with Stephen Randall, where I managed to go into the Virtual Boy, and this week I managed to name drop Quantum Leap so many times I questioned how the fuck I knew what Quantum Leap was. Because I'm
Quantum
like
Leap,
only
Steve
20.
Bakula. He's trying to get home.
But they're like, you're like 21. How the hell do you know about this? I'm like, it's come on reruns, and I love just dropping it because it's funny.
I got that too. I mean, my parents watched a lot of it as far as reruns go, and I mean, I'm not terribly much older than you are. You know, you catch it on reruns because that's the type of show that your parents watched and go, my kid can watch this.
Exactly. Actually, that show was Stargate SG-1 for my parents. We have the entire series in my house, and I'm proud to say it. It's a good show.
Doesn't that series take up like a whole wall?
It's 10 seasons, so it takes up quite a bit, especially when you consider we have all of Star Trek Deep Space Nine as well. But my mom put that in
you're getting up there. Well, we're going to talk about evil Star Trek Corporation. We do have to touch briefly, since we're on that touch, we have to touch briefly on the Ferengi.
Oh, God.
Because they're all about the almighty dollar. They're all about the profit. Their rules are about the profit. Their actions are all based around getting ahead financially. And they're annoying little buggers.
Apparently little trolls.
When you consider that they were actually created to be the next wave of bad guys after the Klingons wound up siding with the Galactic Federation or whatever it is, and I forget some of the specifics, but when you consider they were created to be the next villainous race in the Star Trek universe, that's kind of sad.
Yeah, they blew up. I remember correctly, they blew up Captain Picard's, like the one Star Cruiser he had before he took over the Enterprise or something like that. It's really funny when you consider in retrospect they're just a bunch of little pumpkin-headed bastards that care about money.
It's true.
Yeah,
well,
they're not really
Borg out of it.
Oh yeah, well, I mean the Borg really aren't dead. Well, I mean I guess they did become the thing. They weren't really an evil corporation. They were just really terrifying.
No, they're just like a force of nature.
They're American Eagle and Hollister. That's what they are. Creating generic people that all go in a mindless cube. There we go. Bam. Yeah, the Ferengi are nice and bam. Yeah, the Ferengi they're fun. They're aliens. I haven't seen that much of anything besides Deep Space Nine. I've seen some of the original. I've seen like 2 of Enterprise and Space on it once.
Poor Scott Bakula. His career was downhill after Quantum Leap. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, and then he did that show with Ray Romano. It was her name. I watched that show. It was good. I mean, I wasn't in the age bracket. You don't like Ray Romano?
No.
I don't find him that
Lord, no.
funny,
I want him to be hit by a car. My hatred of Ray Romano is only slightly less than my hatred of Ben Stiller. And my hatred of Ben Stiller could fuel country.
Really? Why do you hate Ben Stiller so much? I haven't seen... the one Ben Stiller movie I do quote is Dodgeball, but that's not because it's more of a Vince Vaughn movie. If
you've never seen a Ben Stiller movie, you can't possibly understand my hatred for him. I mean,
I'm pretty sure I have.
I have been forced, when I was donating plasma, to watch Ben Stiller movies, like Zoolander, or various Meet the Parents. My rage. I mean, I almost ripped the needle out of my arm. If anyone's ever donated plasma and is listening to this, I almost ripped the needle out of my arm when they put Zoolander on. And then about halfway through, I wish I did. I was wishing that I had.
That is awful. But I've seen Dodgeball, and I quote Dodgeball all the time because that movie's hilarious.
Well, that's fair. He's just in that. He just happens to be in that one. I don't necessarily consider it a Ben Stiller movie. He's not in a starring role. He's in a peripheral. If you have to have Ben Stiller in a movie, he should be peripherally relegated, and then he should die somewhere filming.
Or he should get really fat. Dodgeball.
That's true. That's true. Him in a fat suit is not too bad.
So Ben Stiller versus Michael Bay. Which one? If you had to kill one or kill neither, which one would you kill?
I'd kill Ben Stiller, and I wouldn't think twice.
Okay. I don't know who I'd kill. I'd probably kill Michael Bay, but then again, I don't hate Ben Stiller like you do. I just find Michael Bay annoying. Like I like the first Transformers.
Look. The Office just wrapped up, but somewhere in The Office, there's Michael Scott has a quote about Toby, the HR director, that if he was in a room with Osama bin Laden, Hitler, and Toby, and had a gun with 2 bullets, he'd shoot Toby twice.
He'd shoot Toby. Yeah, I've seen that.
Replace Toby with Ben Stiller, I'd shoot Ben Stiller twice.
Nice.
That's That's just where, just so you understand my hatred of Ben Stiller, that's kind of where it goes.
Yeah, I think it's the first Transformers movie. I liked it, but then again, I was like 14, 15 at the time, so I kind of went with that age range. Had a hot woman, shit exploding, a little story, it was good. And then I watched the second one. Those racist robots were too much for me. And if you've listened to my other, like the Three Beers, which I know Mark plugs, I make lots of jokes that would make those robots look safe in a PC perspective.
I hate the second Transformers with a lot of passion. That one, there's a good movie in there somewhere, but it's about 40 minutes too long.
Yeah, the third one wasn't as bad.
The third one has pacing issues. I don't hate the last part of that. I think they actually crafted a half-decent war movie in the last bit of that. But, Patrick Dempsey's a horrible villain.
Yeah, well, and Leonard Nimoy turned heel.
They need to, I believe they need to put Leonard Nimoy in the new Star Wars. Somehow, some way, just so you could have Leonard Nimoy in both Star Trek and Star Wars.
We'll tell you put Shatner.
We could use Shatner.
We'll put Shatner in there just to watch everybody just throw something at the screen. Cause, J.J.
Abrams is a big Star Trek fan, and now he's doing the Star Wars. So we could get something like that. I mean, I'm down for it. I can enjoy my stuff like that goes.
As long as we get lots of lens flares.
Wow, that actually just flew by.
What?
We're a little bit over time, so we're going to have to wrap this up.
Oh, really? Wow. Well, I mean, I was about to say I had one more evil corporation up my sleeve, and then I was done.
Go for it. We're on recording time now, so go for it if you got another.
Oscorp.
Ooh, there we go. Yeah. How did I forget Oscorp?
Yeah, I don't know how I did either. I have an old mirror thing from Spider-Man in the 70s up on my wall, and I was like, Spider-Man! How did I forget Oscorp? Because even if you just think about movies, they are well represented in post-continuity.
It's true, you do have Oscorp. They create that evil serum, poor Willem Dafoe. They are all about contracts, and, I actually really like the Spider-Man villains as far as the Green Goblin and Hobgoblin go. I enjoy that because they're not completely flat most of the time. But Oscorp in any Spider-Man medium, comic books, movies, one of the various animated television shows, and there have been more than a few, they're always well represented as being a wealthy, influential corporation that serves the whims of a madman.
But they're kind of like the Wayne Enterprises of the Marvel Universe. Well, then again, so are Stark. There are a lot of corporations in the comics, to think about it. Hell, just Marvel.
They have to come up with the money to fund all of their...
So, just Marvel. Marvel frickin' Stark has one. Osborn has one. I'm pretty sure the fucking Fantastic Four have something. Jesus.
Probably, yeah. It would not surprise me if Reed Richards was the head of some kind of corporation. They were involved in something. Even Dr. Doom, he owned his own country at one point.
I'm pretty sure, doesn't he still? I mean, I don't know. I haven't bought a new comic in 2 years because my local shop closed. That made me sad. Yeah, well, hey, I made a killing. I got $250-some worth of stuff for about $50 because me and my stepdad had been going there for 3 years every week. So they'll cut you a break.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, that is one I hadn't thought about. But you're absolutely right. That certainly fits the mold. All right. Since we're wrapping up, anything you want to plug for next week?
Let's see. Well, plugs. Hammer of Doom comes out every Sunday night on the 411 Mania Music Zone. If you like metal, you should totally read it. Let's see podcast next week. Mark Radlich and I will be starting up our Megadeth retrospective. I cannot wait because Mark is currently trucking through Megadeth albums while I'm just giggling gleefully because I know Megadeth like the back of my hand or like the palm of my hand. Hey, let's say yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm a metalhead myself, so that should be.
Well, I mean, heck, if I can't get a hold of my buddy, we should definitely get a third person. No, I don't. If you listen to, you did listen to last week, and I was like, hey, Mark, we should get both Jeff and Stammer on the same podcast. He's like, why the hell would you do that?
It's not a good idea. It's happened before.
Oh no, I listened to one, and it was like my first experience to Jeff Harrison podcasting, where he threatened to cut off to hang up if Stammer wouldn't let him finish. It was I was just kidding because I think they both like Megadeth and shit like that, but I was like, it'd just be funny to have that. But other things, let's see. Oh yeah, one last thing to plug. Three Beards podcast. It's me and two of my buddies doing a morning show, but we're uncensored. We had Mark on there a few weeks ago, but old man Radlich couldn't get his audio right, so we couldn't do that episode, which was our best episode because Mark had the greatest stories.
He keeps mentioning that story, that he swore he'd never talk about it again, and then he apparently was willing to talk about it on your podcast.
Oh, my God, it is the best story ever. You will have to make him tell you, because, like, if I told you, I just as good. Like, I could tell the story, but it would be rattledge good, because he gets all the details down
I know how you
pat.
feel there. Some things it's all about
great.
telling it.
Oh, yeah, like, he had so many stories, which, you know, I didn't know he was he's actually a trained wrestler. I didn't know that. Like, straight trained and all that. I'm like, wow, okay, cool. I always thought Mark worked as a psychologist of sorts.
People, man. Crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Mr. Cooper, thank you for joining me here tonight. I hope to have you on again in the future. So if ever we have a topic that strikes your interest, or you have one that you want to talk about, hit me up, Twitter or the forums, however you want to get a hold of me. Let me know if you have one that you want to talk about. I'll be more than happy to schedule you in again. This has been a blast.
All right. Man, it's not a problem. I'd love to be on. Heck, it's summertime for me. I've got, like, usually, the only reason I couldn't do it at the same time as Relic could do it. You know, 6 is a little early. But, yeah, I'm good.
He wound up pulling out. He had something going on today.
Oh, that would have been fun.
It would have. I was kind of looking forward to that. But you know what? Stuff happens. I'm sure I'll get him on another one these days.
Heck yeah.
So, for the Metalhead, Robert Cooper, this is your villainous host, Robert Winfree, reminding you that the light is bright because the shadows are dark. And thank the villains because they make the sweet things sweeter in your life. Have a good night, everybody.